about the Kelces. We are going to dive so deep into their very unique, sometimes incredibly chaotic family dynamics. We're covering a massive range of topics today. We'll be looking at everything from a highly viral pet parenting dispute that completely split the internet to the downright unbelievable childhood antics that literally forced their parents to lay down the law in ways you won't believe. And ultimately, we are going to break down the freshly confirmed details of what might just be the absolute biggest pop culture milestone of the entire year: Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift's wedding. As we go through this, I want you to pay really close attention to how these family members interact with one another, and specifically, how their wild past heavily influences their present-day lives. Honestly, it is a fantastic, totally unfiltered case study in family dynamics and what happens when two totally different worlds collide. So get comfortable, grab a snack, and let's get ready to unpack all of this incredible material together. You're gonna love this.
Okay, let's just take a really quick look at our roadmap for today so you know exactly where we're headed. First up, we're covering chaotic Kelce house rules. Second, we dive into pet moms versus human moms. And third, the Travis and Taylor wedding. Let's jump right in. Section 1, chaotic Kelce house rules. All right, so this entire conversation really kicked off with a highly specific fan question. The fan basically asked what rules exist in your house purely because of something Jason or Travis did growing up, something that can never ever be allowed to happen again. Now, at first, there was actually a little bit of confusion about the question itself, which is pretty funny. They had to stop and clarify if the fan meant rules they grew up with under their parents, Ed and Donna, or rules they implement right now as parents themselves, specifically because of the crazy stories they've heard about their own past. It was Kylie Kelce who had to step in, take the reins, and clarify that the question was getting at the rules she implements in her own home today. She's putting these rules in place specifically to prevent her kids from repeating the legendary chaotic mistakes of their father and their uncle. And let me tell you, once that parameter was officially set, the answers that followed were absolutely incredible. You really get a sense of the sheer panic a parent must feel when raising kids with that specific Kelce DNA. Well, the answers definitely did not disappoint, not even for a second. Right out of the gate, we learn about a major non-negotiable rule in the modern Kelce household. Absolutely no one is allowed to play in the car. Now, you might be wondering, okay, that's a normal rule, but why is it so strictly enforced for them? Because it turns out a young Travis Kelce once literally drove a car through a garage. Yes, you heard that correctly, through the garage. But somehow it actually doesn't stop there. It's also casually mentioned in the source material that someone once used the trunk of a car as a literal bathroom. And yes, spoiler alert, that someone was also Travis. He apparently even went potty in the actual bathroom at some point in a way that was so memorable they brought it up, though the details on exactly why that was noteworthy are hilariously vague. But it brilliantly illustrates the sheer level of absolute unpredictability they were dealing with on a daily basis. What's super interesting is that Jason's oldest daughter, Wyatt, is already showing some of those really dominant Kelce traits. She's bossing her younger sisters around, egging them on in a way that perfectly mirrors that classic, uncontainable, high-octane Kelce energy. So, keeping those kids out of the cars? Yeah, that is rule number 1 for sure. It's basically a matter of family survival at this point. Now, this wild behavior didn't just stop at cars. It built into some incredibly intense, almost unbelievable safety protocols inside the house. Kylie Kelce noted that she literally takes into consideration exactly how their kitchen knives are stored. And we aren't just talking about putting them in a higher drawer. No, she admitted to locking them in a literal safe. A safe. The reason? Jason and Travis apparently thought throwing knives high into the air was a fantastic, super fun idea during their youth, entirely inspired by watching the Ninja Turtles. I mean, just picture that level of household chaos. But what's absolutely fascinating here is the stark contrast in parenting styles across the generations. Kylie explicitly states that in her kids' preschool endeavors today, she makes it a point to side with the teachers just to avoid getting kicked out of the school. But Jason and Travis's parents? Actually, scratch that. It was a totally different world back then. Their father, Ed Kelce, once literally blamed the teachers for not watching the kids better during what they called a sporking incident, which basically meant the boys were playing with silverware like it was a full contact sport. Their mom, Donna, also regularly vouched for them whenever they got into trouble, acting as their ultimate defense attorney. In fact, Jason recalled getting into roughly 72 fights growing up. 72. But the family narrative was always that he was just finishing them, or he was protecting someone, like a girl he thought was being picked on, even if it turned out the other kids were literally just playing around. It is a wildly different approach to authority, conflict, and household management compared to how Kylie is trying to run things today. And that generational shift doesn't stop with safety.
Parenting styles regarding food have also dramatically evolved, and it's creating some major hilarious friction today. Growing up, Ed Kelce had a remarkably strict, old-school, no-nonsense eating policy. You are going to eat that food, and there are absolutely no ifs, ands, or buts about it, period. If you want to leave the dinner table, you finish everything on your plate. Now, Travis, who very openly admits to being a super picky eater, actually completely agrees with this old-school method today. He totally backs his dad's play. However, over in Jason and Kylie's house, they have implemented a much more modern rule. You have to at least taste the food, but if you genuinely don't like it, you don't have to finish it. Well, Jason absolutely hates this modern wiggle room rule. He strongly argues that his kids possess that incredibly stubborn half-Kelce DNA. He believes with his whole chest that if you give those kids an inch, they will take an absolute mile, stubbornly spitting the food out the literal second it touches their palate just to win the psychological battle before the dinner has even really started. And let me tell you, that Kelce stubbornness is very real. The source highlights a specific incident where the younger sister, Benny, actually bit Wyatt, the oldest, purely because Wyatt took something from her. When Wyatt was sent to timeout for her reaction and started complaining about it, her other sister, Ellie, calmly looked at her and said, "That's because that was karma." I mean, wow. These kids are fiercely independent and sharp as a tack, which makes every single one of these house rules a constant, daily, high-stakes negotiation.
All right, moving on to section 2, pet moms versus human moms. So how did this whole debate even start? It was completely sparked by a voicemail from a caller named Andrea who hails from Kansas City. Andrea called in and presented a very specific, highly debated modern dilemma. She earnestly asked if she actually counts as a mother and therefore is entitled to celebrate Mother's Day, given that her fur children aren't actually standard pets like dogs or cats. No, she is the extremely proud pet parent of 3 pigs. Their names? Gus, Georgie, and Frankie. Andrea explained that when she tries to wish herself a happy Mother's Day to celebrate her and her fur children, she gets completely shut down. People literally tell her to sit back down because she doesn't have skin children, and therefore in their eyes, she simply does not count as a real mother. She brought this exact scenario to the Kelce family to get their absolute final verdict on whether pet parents truly deserve recognition on traditional holidays like Mother's Day or Father's Day. It is a question that really gets at the heart of how we define modern family roles.
And man, oh man, did this specific dilemma create a crystal clear, massive divide between Kylie and Jason. I mean, they were on entirely different planets with this one. On one side, you have Kylie, who firmly and enthusiastically supports the idea that celebrating as a pet mom is completely valid. Her reasoning is deeply rooted in empathy and the concept of responsibility. She argues that for some people, having human children just isn't in the cards or isn't in their life plans, but as a pet parent, you are still stepping up and taking sole responsibility for the well-being of a living creature. She fully, completely acknowledged that raising a pet is obviously not nearly as difficult or complex as raising a human child, but the core fundamental responsibility of keeping another being alive and thriving is absolutely still there. On the exact opposite end of the spectrum, you have Jason, who views the pet mom stance as entirely 100% invalid. Jason's logic is highly literal and very traditional. He argues that Mother's Day is meant to be celebrated specifically by the people you actually mother. In his view, the holiday is designed for the children, or maybe the husband, to celebrate the mother, not for the mother to just celebrate herself in a vacuum. Therefore, his logic dictates that unless Gus, Georgie, and Frankie the pigs are literally putting on aprons, cooking some bacon, well, maybe not bacon, but cooking a nice brunch and throwing Andrea a party, he just doesn't quite see any logic in her claiming the holiday for herself. The dynamic between their two answers is just absolute gold. While Kylie gave pet moms a total, supportive green light to celebrate the day however they want, even citing the amazing phrase, "whatever floats your boat finds the lost remote," Jason was hilariously, brutally blunt. He looked right into the camera and directly told pet moms that it is a free country and, quote, "If you want to celebrate Mother's Day as a pet mom, go the bleep right on and do it, but I'm not going to partake in your imagination land." Imagination land! He just absolutely refuses to validate it himself. However, he did soften the blow just a little bit. He offered a funny silver lining, humorously suggesting that Andrea should just say, forget it, go out to a nice brunch completely by herself and just enjoy 20 minutes of absolute peace outside alone, far away from her 3 pigs. It's a perfect, totally relatable example of 2 completely different worldviews colliding in a lighthearted, deeply funny family debate, leaving us with one highly memorable, incredibly blunt quote from Jason. All right, let's pivot to our third and final section, the Travis and Taylor wedding.
So let's break down exactly how the news of this completely massive, pop culture shaking event actually unfolded to the general public. It all started on July 3rd when it was heavily confirmed that Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift officially said "I do" at the absolutely iconic Madison Square Garden in New York City. I just want you to pause and think about the sheer scale of that venue for a wedding. Madison Square Garden. That is not your average country club ceremony. That is a legitimate global arena event. From there, the news actually stayed relatively surprisingly quiet for almost an entire week until July 9th. That's when Jason Kelce, who was acting as the groom's best man, finally made his very first public comments about the big day. He was out competing at the American Century Championship Celebrity Golf Tournament over in Nevada. He stopped and told the Reno Gazette-Journal, along with a bunch of gathered fans, that the wedding was a great, amazing, and quote, special event for our entire family. Then, the very next day, on July 10th, the media floodgates opened up just a little bit more when prominent sports commentator Rich Eisen went on Entertainment Tonight. Rich actually confirmed some highly specific, completely adorable details about the wedding party itself. So as you can see, it was a very carefully, strategically rolled out series of confirmations coming strictly from their inner circle. Now, arguably, one of the most heartwarming, amazing details confirmed by both Jason Kelce and Rich Eisen was the incredibly heavy involvement of the next generation of the Kelce family. All 4 of Jason and Kylie's daughters served as flower girls for this insanely star-studded ceremony. Let's just look at the lineup here. You have 6-year-old Wyatt, 5-year-old Elliot, 3-year-old Bennett, and little 15-month-old Finley. Jason proudly, beamingly stated that his daughters have absolutely incredible personalities and that Travis and Taylor just love them so dearly, making the entire family incredibly happy and proud to be such a huge part of the day. Rich Eisen also painted a truly beautiful, vivid picture of the event during his broadcast. He noted how completely awesome the entire Kelce family is, and he describes the overwhelmingly adorable scene of those 4 little girls running around the massive, cavernous venue of Madison Square Garden, just freely sprinkling flower petals absolutely all over the place. Honestly, hearing that detail really grounds the whole thing. It added a deeply intimate, genuine, family-focused element to what was undoubtedly a massive, heavily scrutinized global spectacle. It wasn't just a celebrity event, it was a real family celebration. But, the ultimate family endorsement, the real stamp of approval, came a few weeks later. During a July 23rd interview, Kylie Kelce publicly gave her formal, deeply heartfelt congratulations to the 36-year-old newlyweds. Her exact words were, "I would like to say congratulations to Tay and Trive. It was magical. Taylor's been family now for quite some time." She went on to explain that the wedding was simply a way of making things officially official on paper. She described the event as intimate, totally incredible, and completely full of love, highlighting both the obvious love the couple has for each other and the massive amount of love everybody in that room had for them. What's also super notable here, and really worth pointing out, is how fiercely protective Kylie remains of their privacy. Even while answering the question gracefully, she made it very, very clear that any further granular details about the wedding are strictly up to Travis and Taylor to share with the world if they ever choose to do so. She wasn't going to spill their secrets. It was an incredibly classy, definitive welcome to the family, handled with perfect media savvy. Of course, we all know it really wouldn't be a true Kelce family event without a little bit of rowdy, unrestrained, brotherly behavior to cap things off, right? While Jason was being interviewed at that celebrity golf tournament on July 9th, a fan in the crowd just couldn't resist asking a very specific, very funny question about his role as the best man. The fan yelled out asking Jason if he drank more or less than 15 beers during the massive wedding reception. I mean, think about that, setting the over-under line at 15 beers. In true, authentic Jason Kelce fashion, he did not sugarcoat his answer for the cameras. He happily, proudly admitted that his final tally of beers consumed to celebrate his brother and Taylor Swift tying the knot was, quote, way over that number. Way over 15 beers. It serves as this totally hilarious, grounding reminder that even when they are standing inside Madison Square Garden, literally surrounded by A-list celebrities and global pop royalty, the Kelce brothers are always, always going to bring their own unique, highly authentic brand of unrestrained celebration to the party. You just can't take the Kelce out of the boy. And wow, that brings us to the end of our incredibly deep dive into this source material. We've covered a tremendous amount of ground together today, navigating through everything from childhood cars being literally driven through closed garages, all the way to massive culture-defining celebrity weddings at Madison Square Garden. But before we wrap up this explainer entirely, I want to leave you with one final, highly provocative thought to ponder. I want you to think back to that highly viral, passionately debated topic from Section 2. Where do you personally stand on the great pet mom debate? When Mother's Day rolls around next year, do you find yourself siding with Kylie, believing it is a totally valid, beautiful celebration of someone taking real responsibility for a living creature? Or do you side with Jason, firmly and literally declaring that treating your pet pigs like human children belongs strictly in imagination land? It is a fantastic debate that perfectly captures so many of our modern cultural shifts regarding family and identity. I highly, highly encourage you to think about how you define those boundaries in your own life and your own family. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope you found these insights as endlessly fascinating to unpack as I did. Take care and keep asking those great questions.